The sound of Janelle's laughter drifting from our kitchen window should have warmed my heart. Instead, it made me freeze. I'd been under my pickup truck for the better part of an hour, scraping rust and trying to ignore the fact that my wife had been working late every night this week. But that laugh, the throaty, genuine one she used to save just for me, was coming from inside our house at 2 a.m. Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible Reddit stories. I rolled out from under the truck, wiping grease from my hands on an old rag. The November air bit at my face as I stood in our driveway, staring at the warm glow spilling from our kitchen window. Through the gap in the curtains, I could see Janelle pacing back and forth, phone pressed to her ear. That smile I hadn't seen in months lighting up her face. Her phone, the one she'd left charging on my workbench. I glanced down at the device, its screen lighting up with a new message. Then another. Then a photo that made my stomach drop to somewhere around my boots. Well, isn't that something? I muttered, picking up the phone. The photo showed Janelle in a black cocktail dress I'd never seen before, leaning into a man whose hand was very clearly on her thigh. Russell Baird, her boss. The same Russell Baird who'd been mentoring her for the past 6 months. The text thread above the photo was even better. Flirty messages, plans to meet, and promises that made it crystal clear this wasn't their first rodeo. I'm Trent Mallory, by the way, 46 years old, structural engineer, and apparently the last person in Chicago to know my wife was cheating on me. I'd built my small engineering firm from nothing, working 16-hour days and weekends to give Janelle the life she wanted. Meanwhile, she'd been climbing the corporate ladder at Morrison & Associates, one rung at a time, and apparently one boss at a time. The kitchen window slid open, and Janelle's voice carried across the yard. I know. He's been so suspicious lately. No, Russell, I can handle Trent. He's not as smart as he thinks he is. Ah, modern love. Nothing says forever like your wife calling you stupid to her boyfriend at 2 a.m. I pocketed her phone and headed inside. Time to have a conversation. Hey, honey, I called out as I walked through the back door. How was work? Janelle nearly jumped out of her skin, spinning around with her own phone clutched to her chest. Trent, you scared me. I was just talking to Vera about tomorrow's presentation. Vera, her best friend and the HR director at Morrison & Associates. Another piece of work, that one. Always stirring up drama and feeding Janelle's ambitions with whispers about who was sleeping with whom and which partnerships were falling apart. Vera's working late too, huh? I pulled her phone from my pocket and set it on the counter between us. She must be dedicated. The color drained from Janelle's face as she stared at her phone. I thought I lost that. Nope, found it on my workbench. Funny thing about phones, they keep getting messages even when you're not holding them. I leaned against the counter, crossing my arms. Nice dress in that photo, by the way. When did you buy it? Janelle's mouth opened and closed like a fish gasping for air. Trent, I can explain. I'm sure you can. You always were good with words. I picked up her phone and scrolled through the messages, reading them aloud. Can't wait to see you tomorrow night. Wear that black dress again. Your husband won't even notice you're gone. I looked up at her. Well, he's wrong about that last part. It's not what it looks like, she said, but her voice had lost all conviction. Really? Because it looks like my wife of 18 years is having an affair with her boss. It looks like she's been lying to me for months. And it looks like she just called me stupid to the man she's sleeping with. I set the phone down and stepped closer. So please, enlighten me. What exactly is it? Janelle straightened up, and I saw the moment she decided to go on the offensive instead of playing defense. It was a look I'd seen before, usually right before she demolished someone in a business meeting. You want to know what it is, Trent? It's me finally finding someone who appreciates what I bring to the table, someone who doesn't come home covered in grease and expect me to be grateful for a life of mediocrity. Mediocrity, I tasted the word. Is that what we're calling the house I built for you, the cars I bought, the vacations I paid for while you were finding yourself in grad school? That's exactly what I'm calling it. She was warming up now, 18 years of resentment pouring out. Do you know what it's like being married to someone who's perfectly content with ordinary? I have ambitions, Trent. I want more than this little suburban prison you've trapped me in. And Russell offers you more? Russell offers me a partnership, a real future, not just promises to maybe expand the business someday when you're not too busy playing with your tools in the garage. I nodded slowly. Well, that's honest at least. How long? How long what? How long have you been screwing him? She flinched at the bluntness. 6 months. The whole time he's been mentoring you. Yes. And you were planning to tell me when? We We were going to wait until after the Morrison partnership announcement. Russell's being considered for senior partner, and if he gets it, you get promoted too, nice and tidy. I walked to the kitchen window and looked out at our neighborhood. Mrs. Kowalski across the street was probably watching from behind her curtains, collecting gossip for her Facebook group. So, what happens now? Now you can stop pretending you're happy too, Janelle said. We both know this marriage has been over for years. Have we? I turned back to her. Because I thought we were just going through a rough patch. Silly me. Don't be dramatic, Trent. We can handle this like adults. Quiet divorce, split everything down the middle, and we both move on with our lives. Quiet divorce. I laughed, but there wasn't any humor in it. Right, because we wouldn't want to damage Russell's chances at that partnership. Exactly. I stared at her for a long moment, this woman I'd loved since college, and realized I was looking at a stranger. You know what, Janelle? You're absolutely right. You do deserve better. Her face softened slightly. Trent? And so do I. The next morning, I loaded everything Janelle owned into garbage bags and set them on our front porch. I changed the locks, moved my paycheck to a new account, and called my lawyer. Then I sat on my front steps with a cup of coffee and waited. She showed up around noon, probably expecting to find me at work like any other Tuesday. Instead, she found her life in trash bags and me very much not at work. What the hell is this? She demanded, gesturing at the bags. Your stuff. Thought you might need it for your new life. You can't just throw me out of my own house. Actually, I can. My name's on the deed. Wedding present from my parents, remember? I took a sip of coffee. Don't worry, you'll get your share when we divorce, assuming there's anything left after I pay my lawyer. Mrs. Kowalski's curtains twitched. She was definitely getting this on video. This is insane, Janelle said. I'm calling Vera. Good idea. Maybe she can help you move your stuff. Janelle started grabbing bags, shoving them into her car with jerky, angry movements. You're going to regret this, Trent. Russell has connections, important people who can make your life very difficult. Is that a threat? It's a reality check. You think you can just humiliate me and walk away? I know things about your business, about your clients, about the corners you've cut. I stood up slowly. What corners? The Peterson project, the one where you used substandard materials to save money, the city inspector who you took to those Bulls games right before he signed off on the foundation work. The Peterson project had been tight on budget, and yes, I'd made some judgment calls about materials. And yes, I'd taken Inspector Morrison to a few games, but everything had been above board. Legal, safe, mostly. You wouldn't. Try me. She slammed her trunk shut and turned to face me. You want to play hardball? I invented hardball. By the time I'm done with you, you won't be able to get a job inspecting playground equipment. She drove off, leaving me standing in my driveway with the sick realization that this wasn't going to be the quiet, civilized divorce she'd originally proposed. This was going to be war, and I was about to find out just how dirty she was willing to fight. My phone buzzed with a text from my oldest client. Trent, need to talk. Heard some concerning things about the Peterson project. Call me. I looked up at Mrs. Kowalski's window and gave her a little wave. She ducked behind her curtains. Well, I said to no one in particular, this should be interesting. The next few days passed in a blur of damage control. 3 clients called to discuss concerns about my work. 2 more canceled upcoming projects entirely. Word was spreading through the construction community that Trent Mallory might not be as reliable as everyone thought. I spent my evenings at Eli's boxing gym, working out my frustration on heavy bags and trying to figure out my next move. Eli had been my best friend since high school, an ex-fighter who'd opened his gym after a career-ending injury. He was the kind of guy who'd help you move a body, no questions asked. She's trying to destroy your business, he said, holding the heavy bag while I pounded it. You gonna let her? What choice do I have? She's got connections I don't. People believe her. So get better connections. Fight back. With what? I'm a structural engineer, not a corporate shark. You're also the smartest guy I know. You built your business from nothing once. You can do it again. I stopped punching and looked at him. What are you saying? I'm saying maybe it's time to remind people who they're dealing with. You've been playing nice for 18 years. Maybe it's time to play smart instead. That night, I drove to Morrison & Associates' annual charity gala. It was being held at the Riverside Ballroom, a glitzy venue downtown where Chicago's business elite gathered to see and be seen. I wasn't invited, but I'd designed the building's renovation 3 years ago. I knew every entrance, every exit, and every security camera blind spot. I also knew they'd be announcing Russell's partnership tonight. I parked across the street and watched the parade of expensive cars dropping off women in designer dresses and men in $1,000 suits. Through the ballroom's floor-to-ceiling windows, I could see Janelle holding court near the bar, wearing a red dress that probably cost more than most people's monthly rent. Russell was beside her, his hand on the small of her back, playing the part of the successful executive with his beautiful girlfriend. My phone buzzed. A text from Miguel, the IT guy who'd helped me set up my office network. Got that tablet sync you asked about. Your wife's device is backing up everything to the cloud. Photos, messages, emails, everything. I smiled for the first time in days. Send me the access codes. 20 minutes later, I was sitting in my truck with a tablet full of Janelle's private communications, text messages with Russell planning their affair, emails to her friends bragging about manipulating stupid Trent into paying for her lifestyle while she upgraded to a better model. Photos from their weekend getaways that she'd told me were work conferences. But the real gold mine was in her email drafts. A detailed plan to destroy my business, complete with a list of my clients and their contact information. She'd been methodically spreading rumors and planting seeds of doubt for weeks. She'd even drafted a letter to the City Planning Commission, alleging safety violations on multiple projects. "You want to play dirty?" I muttered, scrolling through the evidence. "Let's play dirty." I forwarded everything to myself, then started making copies. Lots of copies. The ballroom's main doors opened, and Russell stepped out onto the balcony overlooking the river. He was alone, probably taking a break from schmoozing. I grabbed my camera and headed for the building. The service entrance was exactly where I remembered it, and the security guard was exactly where he always was, asleep at his desk. I slipped past him and took the service elevator to the 3rd floor, then the main elevator to the ballroom level. The party was in full swing. A jazz quartet played near the windows while Chicago's elite mingled and networked. I spotted Janelle immediately, surrounded by her usual crowd of ambitious women who treated every social gathering like a competition. Russell was still on the balcony, talking on his phone. Perfect. I made my way through the crowd, keeping my head down and avoiding eye contact. Most people were too drunk or too self-absorbed to notice one more middle-aged guy in a suit. The AV booth was tucked behind the stage, manned by a college kid who was more interested in his phone than the event. I waited until he stepped away for a bathroom break, then slipped inside. The presentation system was already set up for Russell's partnership announcement. All I had to do was connect my phone and upload a few files. "Ladies and gentlemen," the MC announced, "please welcome Morrison & Associates' newest senior partner, Russell Baird." The crowd applauded as Russell walked to the podium, Janelle beaming proudly from the front row. He launched into his acceptance speech, talking about leadership and integrity and building the future together. I waited until he got to the part about family values, then hit play. The main screen behind Russell lit up with a photo of him and Janelle in a hotel room, followed by a scrolling display of their text messages. The explicit ones. The applause faded. Someone gasped. Russell turned around and went white as a sheet. "To honest leadership," I called out, raising a champagne glass I'd grabbed from a passing waiter. Russell's eyes found me in the crowd, and his face went from white to purple. "You son of a—" He lunged toward me, but I was ready. I stepped aside, and he went face first into a table full of champagne glasses. The crash was spectacular. Janelle was screaming something, but I couldn't hear her over the chaos. Half the room was staring at the screen. The other half was trying to help Russell up from the floor. Security was pushing through the crowd, but Eli appeared out of nowhere and grabbed my arm. "Time to go, brother." We headed for the service exit as the ballroom erupted behind us. I could hear Janelle shouting my name, but I didn't look back. "That was either the smartest thing you've ever done," Eli said as we reached the parking garage, "or the stupidest." Probably both. My phone was already buzzing with calls and messages. I ignored them all except one, a text from Miguel. "Dude, that was awesome. Also, you might want to check your wife's messages. Things are getting interesting." I opened the tablet and scrolled through Janelle's recent texts. Panic messages to Russell, frantic calls to Vera, and then something that made me stop cold. A message from Vera. "Don't worry, I can fix this, but it's going to cost Russell everything." I read it again, trying to make sense of it. Why would Vera want to destroy Russell? She was the one who'd been encouraging Janelle's affair from the beginning, unless she wasn't. I scrolled back through weeks of messages between Janelle and Vera, looking for patterns, and slowly a picture began to emerge. Vera hadn't been encouraging the affair. She'd been orchestrating it. Every suggestion, every piece of advice, every innocent comment had been designed to push Janelle deeper into Russell's web. But why? The answer came in an email thread I almost missed, buried in Janelle's spam folder. Messages between Vera and someone named David Chen, discussing a hostile takeover of Morrison and Associates. Vera had been feeding information to a rival firm, using her position in HR to gather intelligence on partnerships, client relationships, and internal politics. Russell's affair with Janelle wasn't just about closeness or ambition, it was about destroying him professionally, making him vulnerable to a takeover that would put Vera's real allies in control of the company. Janelle hadn't been playing Russell. Vera had been playing them both, and now I was caught in the middle of a corporate war I didn't even know was happening. My phone rang. Vera's name appeared on the screen. "Hello, Trent," she said when I answered. "We need to talk." "I'll bet we do. Meet me at the Riverside warehouse in an hour. Come alone. And if I don't? Then your wife goes to prison for embezzlement and you go down as an accessory. I have documentation that will convince any jury that you've been helping Janelle steal from her clients for months." The line went silent. I looked at Eli, who'd been listening to the conversation. "What do you think?" "I think you're about to walk into a trap." "Yeah, but I'm also about to find out who's really behind all this. Want backup? Want to stay out of federal prison?" "Good point." He handed me a small device that looked like a USB drive. Hidden camera, military grade, records everything and uploads to a secure server in real time. "Where did you get this?" "You don't want to know." The Riverside warehouse was the abandoned grain facility on the south side, the kind of place where people went to have conversations they didn't want recorded. I parked across the street and watched the building for 10 minutes before going in. Vera was waiting in the main floor, standing next to a table covered with manila folders. She'd traded her usual business attire for jeans and a leather jacket, and she looked more dangerous than I'd ever seen her. "You're early," she said. "I'm curious. You've been pulling strings for months, destroying people's lives. I want to know why," she smiled. "You always were smarter than Janelle gave you credit for. She really did underestimate you." "Answer the question." 5 years ago, you fired me from the Henderson project. Do you remember?" I did. Vera had been working as a consultant, and I'd caught her inflating her hours and billing for work she hadn't done. I'd terminated her contract and reported her to the state licensing board. "You've been planning this for 5 years?" "I've been planning this since the day you destroyed my engineering career and forced me to start over in HR." She opened one of the folders and pulled out a photograph. "But I couldn't do it alone. I needed allies, people with access to information and resources." The photograph showed Russell and several other Morrison and Associates executives at what looked like a private party. They were all laughing, drinks in hand, while a young woman who couldn't have been more than 21 served them champagne in her underwear. "Industrial espionage?" I asked. "Corporate restructuring. David Chen's firm has been trying to acquire Morrison and Associates for 3 years. All they needed was leverage, proof that the current leadership was corrupt, unstable, or both. So you gave them Russell's affair." "I gave them Russell's affair, his embezzlement, his tax evasion, and his harassment of junior employees. The affair was just the appetizer." "And Janelle?" "Janelle was a useful idiot. Ambitious enough to be manipulated, stupid enough not to see it coming." Vera pulled out another folder. "But you're different. You're smart, resourceful. You could be valuable to the right people." "Let me guess. You want me to join your corporate coup?" "I want you to disappear quietly and let this play out. In exchange, I'll make sure you're not implicated in Janelle's crimes." "What crimes?" She opened the second folder, revealing bank statements, forged invoices, and altered contracts. "Janelle has been skimming money from client accounts for 8 months. Small amounts, carefully hidden, but enough to constitute felony embezzlement. She's been using your business accounts to launder the money." My stomach dropped. "That's impossible. I monitor every transaction." "Do you? Or do you trust your wife to handle the bookkeeping while you focus on the engineering?" She pulled out a bank statement with my signature on it, except I'd never seen the document before in my life. "You forged my signature." "Janelle forged your signature. I just provided the template." She smiled. Amazing what people will do when they think they're in love. I looked at the evidence spread across the table. Even if I could prove the signatures were forged, it would take months of legal battles and thousands of dollars in attorney fees. My business would be destroyed long before I cleared my name. "What do you want?" "Walk away. Tonight. Disappear for a few months while this gets sorted out. When the dust settles, you can come back and rebuild. Clean slate." "And if I don't?" "Then you go down with Russell and Janelle. Corporate conspiracy, money laundering, fraud. You'll be lucky to get 10 years. I pretended to consider her offer while the hidden camera recorded everything. "What about my clients? My employees?" "Casualties of war, but they'll survive. You might not." "You really think you've covered all the bases?" "I know I have." "What about Miguel?" Her confident expression flickered for just a moment. "Who's Miguel?" "My IT guy, the one who's been monitoring all the digital evidence you've been planting, the one who traced the forged documents back to their source." I pulled out my phone and showed her a text message. "Got her. Everything's recorded and uploaded." Vera's face went white. "You're bluffing." "Am I?" Miguel's a former NSA contractor. He knows things about digital forensics that would make your head spin. Every forged signature, every planted email, every fabricated bank record. He's got the digital fingerprints that prove you created them. That's impossible. You want to bet your freedom on it? She reached into her jacket, and for a moment I thought she was going for a weapon. Instead, she pulled out her phone and started dialing. "David? We have a problem. No, a big problem. Mallory knows everything." While she was distracted, I grabbed the folders from the table and backed toward the exit. She noticed too late. "Stop!" she shouted, ending her call. "You don't understand what you're dealing with. These people will eliminate to protect their investment." "Then I guess I better get this evidence to the FBI before they find me." I ran for my truck as Vera's voice echoed behind me. "You can't hide forever, Trent. They have resources you can't imagine." I drove straight to the federal building downtown and spent the next 6 hours telling my story to Agent Sarah Morrison. No relation to the company, just an unfortunate coincidence. I turned over the camera footage, Miguel's digital forensics report, and copies of all the evidence Vera had shown me. "This is going to take time to unravel," Agent Morrison warned me. "Corporate fraud cases are complex, especially when they involve multiple jurisdictions and international money transfers." "How much time?" "Months, maybe longer. And in the meantime, you're going to be a target. These people have already tried to frame you once. They won't hesitate to try again." "So what do I do?" "Lay low. Stay visible enough that they can't make you disappear, but quiet enough that they don't see you as an immediate threat." I spent the next week living at Eli's gym, sleeping on a cot in his office and trying to figure out my next move. The story had broken in the local business press, Morrison and Associates under federal investigation, but the details were still sealed. Russell had been arrested for embezzlement and fraud. Janelle was cooperating with investigators in exchange for immunity. Vera had disappeared entirely. My phone rang constantly with calls from reporters, lawyers, and former clients. I ignored them all except one. "Mr. Mallory, this is Jessica Carter. I'm the senior partner at Carter & Associates. I believe you know my work." I did. Carter & Associates was Morrison's biggest competitor, a boutique firm that specialized in high-end commercial development. Jessica Carter was known as one of the toughest negotiators in Chicago. "Ms. Carter, what can I do for you?" "I'd like to offer you a job, senior engineering consultant, your own team, your own projects, and complete autonomy over technical decisions." "That's generous. What's the catch?" "No catch. I've been following your work for years. You're exactly the kind of talent we need to expand our infrastructure division." "And it has nothing to do with the fact that I just helped expose the biggest corporate fraud scandal in Chicago this year?" She laughed. "Mr. Mallory, I don't care if you robbed a bank last week. You're a brilliant engineer, and you've proven you have integrity. That's all I need to know." 2 months later, I was standing in my new office on the 40th floor of the Carter Building, looking out at Lake Michigan and trying to adjust to my new reality. The FBI investigation had concluded with Russell and 3 other Morrison executives facing federal charges. Vera had been found in the Cayman Islands, trying to access offshore accounts that had been frozen by international banking authorities. Janelle had testified against all of them in exchange for a plea deal that would keep her out of prison. Our divorce had been finalized the week before, with me keeping the house and most of our assets in exchange for not pursuing civil charges for the forged documents. I was reviewing blueprints for a new hospital project when my assistant buzzed me. "Mr. Mallory, there's someone here to see you. Says it's personal." Janelle walked into my office wearing a simple blue dress and the kind of nervous expression I hadn't seen since our first date in college. She looked around at the expensive furniture and floor-to-ceiling windows. "Nice office," she said. "It pays the bills." "I heard about the Carter job. Congratulations." "Thank you." We stood there for a moment, 2 people who'd shared 18 years of their lives and now had nothing to say to each other. "I wanted to apologize," she said finally. "For everything. The affair, the lies, trying to destroy your business. I was angry and stupid, and I let Vera manipulate me into doing things I never thought I was capable of. Apology accepted." "Just like that?" "Just like that." I walked to the window and looked out at the city. "We're different people than we were when we got married, Janelle. We wanted different things. Maybe this was always going to happen." "Maybe." She joined me at the window. Do you ever wonder what would have happened if we just talked to each other instead of letting it get this far? Every day. I'm moving to Seattle, she said. Fresh start. New job with a nonprofit that helps women start their own businesses. That sounds perfect for you. What about you? Any plans for a fresh start? I thought about Jessica Carter's offer to make me a full partner if the hospital project went well, about the house I was renovating in Lincoln Park, about the woman I'd met at Eli's gym who made me laugh and didn't care that I came home covered in sawdust instead of wearing $1,000 suits. I'm working on it. Janelle nodded and headed for the door. She paused with her hand on the handle. For what it's worth, Trent, I never thought you were stupid. I was just too proud to admit you were smarter than me. After she left, I sat in my chair and pulled out my phone. Miguel had sent me a final report on the digital investigation, complete with a detailed timeline of how Vera had orchestrated the entire conspiracy. It read like a thriller novel, full of offshore accounts, encrypted communications, and corporate espionage. But buried in the technical details was one line that made me smile. Subject's primary error was underestimating the target's technical capabilities and support network. I forwarded the report to Agent Morrison with a note. In case you need this for the trial. Then I called Eli. Want to grab dinner? I'm buying. Finally ready to celebrate? Something like that. Good, because I've got news. Remember that woman you met at the gym, the architect? Sarah? What about her? She's been asking about you. Specifically, she wants to know if you're free Saturday night. I looked out at the Chicago skyline, thinking about everything that had brought me to this moment. The betrayal, the revenge, the investigation, and finally, the justice. Tell her I'm free. 6 months later, I was standing in the ballroom of the Riverside Hotel, the same venue where I'd exposed Russell's affair, watching Sarah give a presentation about sustainable urban development to a room full of architects and city planners. She was brilliant, passionate, and completely unimpressed by corporate politics or social climbing. After her presentation, we walked out onto the same balcony where Russell had taken his phone call that night. The city lights reflected off the river, and I could hear jazz music drifting from another event in the hotel. Penny for your thoughts, Sarah said, slipping her hand into mine. Just thinking about how much can change in a year. Good changes? I thought about my new job, my new house, and the woman standing beside me who challenged me to be better every day. I thought about Russell, who was serving 5 years in federal prison, about Vera, who was fighting extradition from the Cayman Islands, about Janelle, who'd sent me a postcard from Seattle with a picture of Mount Rainier and a note that said simply, "Thank you." Yeah, I said, good changes. Sarah smiled and kissed me, and for the first time in years, I felt like I was exactly where I was supposed to be. Sometimes the best revenge isn't destroying your enemies. Sometimes it's building a life so good that their betrayal becomes the best thing that ever happened to you. But sometimes, when the situation calls for it, you remind people exactly who they're dealing with. And sometimes, just sometimes, you get to do both.